And I give the floor to Her Excellency Mr. Yvette Cooper, MP, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the Assistant Secretary General for that briefing. For 3.5 years, the world has witnessed a permanent member of this Council engaged in the full-scale and unprovoked invasion of another state, a violation of its most basic obligations under the UN Charter. As President Trump and President Zelensky have worked for peace, the Russian Federation has starkly escalated its attacks. Attacks on the Council of Ministers, on the British Council building, and repeated attacks on residential flats and homes as children sleep in their beds. And we meet today now at the request of Estonian allies because Russia's recklessness is escalating. In the last 2 weeks alone, over 20 Russian drones in Polish airspace, a drone through Romanian territory, and now 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets with their transponders turned off, violating Estonian airspace for 12 minutes. At best, these latest acts are dangerous and reckless. At worst, they are a deliberate attempt to undermine the territorial integrity of sovereign nations and European security. They risk miscalculation. They open the door to direct armed confrontation between NATO and Russia. NATO's combined strength is unparalleled, and its determination to defend peace and security in Europe is unshakable. Of this, Russia must be in no doubt. And I commend the resolute and firm response of Estonia, Poland and Romania and all NATO allies. I welcome the launch of Eastern Sentry on 12th of September to ensure the safety and security of the alliance's eastern border, and I'm proud that UK aircraft are taking part. And to those nations and to all NATO allies, I say the United Kingdom stands in full solidarity with you at this time and always. And to President Putin, I say, your reckless actions risk a direct armed confrontation between NATO and Russia. Our alliance is defensive, but be under no illusion. We stand ready to take all steps necessary to defend NATO's skies and NATO's territory. We are vigilant and we are resolute. And if we need to confront planes that are operating in NATO airspace without permission, then we will do so. The United Kingdom stands by our friends. We are unwavering in our support for the principles of the UN Charter, for our NATO allies, and for Ukraine. And we are committed to increasing the pressure on Russia until it ends its illegal war against Ukraine, ceases its reckless acts, and respects the sovereignty of other states. Russia's imperialist warmongering is a threat to international peace and security. It is a threat to the values and principles that underpin this organisation that has done so much to support stability and prosperity these past 80 years. We must counter it for the sake of us all. Thank you.
And I give the floor to the representative of France.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to begin by thanking Assistant Secretary General Mr. Miroslav Jenča for his statement, and I would like to welcome the ministers present here, Foreign Affairs Minister of Estonia and from the other representatives from the European Union, and Madam Kallas. As we know, on the morning of 19th of September, Russia violated Estonian airspace with 3 fighter jets, which remained there for nearly 12 minutes. These elements lead us to consider that this is an intentional violation. This is the 3rd time in 10 days that Russia has violated the airspace of the European Union and NATO. This latest incursion leaves no room for doubt. Russia is choosing escalation and provocation. Mr. President, this Council had already met exactly 10 days ago to discuss the unacceptable intrusion of around 20 Russian drones into Poland in the context of a massive aerial attack against Ukraine. This new violation, this time carried out in broad daylight and by no fewer than 3 fighter jets, not drones, is unprecedented in over 20 years. It confirms the continuation and accumulation of Russia's provocative actions. Mr. President, France condemns in the strongest terms this dangerous and irresponsible incursion, which constitutes a blatant violation of international law. And we stand firmly alongside Estonia, to whom we express our friendship and our full and unwavering solidarity. France directly contributes to Estonia's security. We participate in the strengthening of our security posture on Europe's eastern flank, alongside our allies in the European Union and NATO. Mr. President, we must not forget that at the same time, Russia continues its war of aggression against Ukraine. Just hours after this incursion, it once again carried out massive strikes against Ukraine using 40 missiles and over 550 drones. Russia must understand that these violations of NATO airspace in no way undermine our determination to implement strong, robust, and credible security guarantees in favor of Ukraine. Mr. President, Ukraine courageously accepted 6 months ago now the principle of an unconditional ceasefire. It has demonstrated its willingness to negotiate. President Volodymyr Zelensky has, for the past 4 months, expressed his readiness for direct negotiations with President Vladimir Putin. Yet, as world leaders gather here in New York to mark the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, such a meeting has still not taken place. Russia, on the contrary, continues its aggression, and Russia is now escalating its intimidation of Ukraine's neighbors. It continues to violate and undermine the principles of the UN Charter, the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of states. It is up to Russia to seize the offer of a ceasefire and the opening of negotiations, as called for by the UN Secretary-General and the entire international community. Mr. President, it is our responsibility as members of the Security Council to acknowledge the obvious and to call upon Russia to end these reckless provocations and to put an end to the large-scale war that it launched more than 3 years ago on the European continent. Thank you.
I thank the representative of France for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of China.
President, I thank ASG Yancha for his briefing and welcome the high-level representatives of Estonia and other relevant countries to the meeting today. President, the airspace incident discussed by the Security Council today and the drone incident discussed a few days ago are both spillover effects of the Ukraine crisis. They reflect the lack of mutual trust and growing suspicions among relevant parties, and illustrate the complex and sensitive nature of the current European security situation. As long as the Ukraine crisis remains unresolved and the war continues, similar incidents are likely to reoccur. Therefore, the urgent imperative and fundamental solution are to realize a political resolution to the Ukraine crisis as soon as possible and to build balanced, effective, and sustainable European security architecture. Regarding the Ukraine crisis, we have fully elaborated our position on multiple occasions at the Security Council before. Tomorrow, the Council will hold a high-level meeting on the issue of Ukraine, when China will expand our position again. I will not go into details today. On the airspace incident, China urges the parties concerned to remain calm and exercise restraint, clarify facts and dispel doubts through dialogue and communication, avoid misunderstandings and misjudgments, and prevent the situation from expanding or escalating. We always maintain that countries should follow the purposes and principles of the UN Charter in handling international relations. Thank you, President.
I thank you. Before giving the floor to the United States, I'd like to welcome the new permanent representative of the United States, Ambassador Michael Waltz, to the Security Council. We look forward to working closely with you in the coming days. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and it's very good to be with you and this esteemed body for the first time. Thank you, ASG Yensha, for your briefing. Of course, I too welcome the participation of Estonia's foreign minister in this briefing as well. Colleagues, just 9 days ago, this council met to discuss Russia's violation of Poland's airspace with a large number of military drones. In that meeting, the United States urged Russia to end the war in Ukraine and stop actions that could risk it escalating into a broader conflict. Instead, on September 19th, Russia again violated the airspace of a NATO member when 3 armed military aircraft flew 10 nautical miles into Estonian airspace, coming within 15 miles of the Estonian parliament. And as we said 9 days ago, the United States stands by our NATO allies in the face of these airspace violations, and I want to take this first opportunity to repeat and to emphasize the United States and our allies will defend every inch of NATO territory. Russia must urgently stop such dangerous behavior. At a time when President Trump in the United States has been focused and spent an enormous amount of time and effort to end this horrific war between Russia and Ukraine, we expect Russia to seek ways to de-escalate, not risk expansion. This event, following on the heels of the Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace, creates the impression that Russia either wants to escalate and pull more countries into this conflict with Ukraine or doesn't have full control of those who operate its fighter planes and drones. So either scenario is very disconcerting, given that Russia is obviously a nuclear power with global reach. And so I once again urge Russia as a permanent member of this council to uphold international peace and security, to respect the sovereignty of its neighbors, to cease violating their airspace, and I call on Russia to negotiate directly with Ukraine to end that war. I thank you, and I very much am honored and look forward to working with each of you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of the Republic of Korea. To begin, my gratitude goes to ASG Yensha for the statement. Colleagues, the Republic of Korea is seriously concerned by the most recent in a series of deeply alarming incidents, this time impacting the territorial integrity of Estonia. On Friday, we were dismayed by reports of fighter jets from the Russian Federation violating Estonian airspace and remaining there over the Gulf of Finland for a total of 12 minutes. We note that this incident led to some countries responding by scrambling their jets in yet another troubling event over European territory. This once again appears to represent a significant breach of the sovereignty of United Nations member state, which could further threaten European and international security and simultaneously erode diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine.